Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. This is the Chorus Call conference operator. Welcome. Thank you for joining the presentations of Acea for the results of 2025. As a reminder, all participants are in listening only mode. After the presentation, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. Should anyone need assistance during the conference call, they may signal an operator by pressing star and zero on their telephone. At this time, I would like to turn the conference over to the Head of Investor Relations of Acea. Please, you have the floor, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the presentation of the 2025 results of Acea. Fabrizio Palermo, General Manager and CEO, Pier Francesco Ragni, Deputy General Manager, and Valentino Bracaglia, CFO, will illustrate the highlights and the main results of the group. I'll give the floor to the CEO, who will make an introduction to the presentation. Well, thank you very much, Dario, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I will start my presentation by expressing a high satisfaction for the results reached in 2025, which really represent an all-time high for the Acea Group. Let me give you the details. Acea reached a pro forma EBITDA of 1.42 billion, up 10% versus 2024. By outperforming in this manner the industrial plan targets, where we announced an average growth of EBITDA by 5% a year. Such result is at the upper end of our guidance range that was provided, and which was plus 10% versus 2024. Now, I need to remind you that the guidance had already been reviewed upward in 2025 versus the initial target of plus 3%. As to the debt EBITDA ratio, pro forma debt EBITDA ratio, 2025 was closed with a ratio of 3.28, below the guidance, which was 3.5 times. As to CapEx, in 2025, we have closed the year with 1.5 billion euros of CapEx, of which 1.2 billion net of subsidies. Now, let me move to the next slide, dividends. We are going to propose the dividends to the next shareholder meeting. Now, considering the strong results reached by the group in 2025 and considering the sound financial structure, the board decided to propose a distribution of dividends equal to 1.20 euro per share, the growth by 26% versus the 2024. Let me remind you the dividend policy of our plan envisages an average growth of dividends by 4%. Last year, we distributed a dividend of 0.95 euro per share, growing by 8% versus 2023. The dividend of this year of 1.2 euros per share includes a one-off of 0.25 euros related to the all-time high results and also the capital gain due to the disposal of the high voltage grid to Terna. Now, here you see the results of the last 3 years. During this period, we have gone through a strong operational and organizational transformation. Now, the path allowed us to strengthen the efficiency and the competitiveness of our companies, and we have been able to establish our role of player with a focus on regulated infrastructure business. In these 3 years, we have strongly accelerated the CapEx plan and maintained at the same time a strong financial structure. The debt EBITDA ratio at the end of 2025 was equal to 3.3 times, which is strongly lower versus what the main rating agencies envisaged. By the rating agencies, we were recognized our performance. As a matter of fact, Moody raised our creditworthiness from Baa2 to Baa1, whereas Fitch improved our outlook from negative to stable. The market, I have to say, also rewarded the results that we have reached and the growth trajectory that we have gone. The total shareholder return has grown by 176% between 2022 and February 2026, when Acea went above 5.6 billion of market cap. This is a result which testifies also the trust of investors and the effectiveness of our strategy with the industrial plan launched 3 years ago. Now, in this next slide, we shall go through the performance achieved by the main businesses of our group, driven by major CapEx, and on the other hand, driven also by the improvement of the operational dynamic of the group. In the water business, EBITDA 820 million euro, up by 23% versus the data of 2022. As to CapEx, we have accelerated strongly in this business. In 2025, CapEx amounted to 891 million euros, up 46% versus 2022. Now, this momentum allowed us to launch a number of strategic operations to modernize the infrastructures. Such infrastructures will be up and running in the next few years, although the projects have already started. For instance, the Peschiera project, which is the biggest water operation, biggest water plant in Italy and in Europe as well. Now, we won all of the water tenders launched with 870,000 inhabitants more versus 2022. And then the budget law of 2026 of Italy envisages the possibility of the extension for 10 years of the duration of Auto to Lazio Centrale, thus giving us a better regulatory visibility to all of our business. As to the electricity business, or the grids and public lighting business, EBITDA 449 million euros, up 27% versus 2022. CapEx are growing here even more rapidly, reaching 385 million euros, up 43%. We have then completed the strategic asset rotation by disposing the grid of the high voltage grid of Terna, and Acea Energia disposed and sold to Plenitude. Such operations favor a more focalized business on regulated businesses. As to the environment, EBITDA goes up to 87 million euros, up 37 million euros versus 2027, whereas CapEx reached 116 million euros, up 152%. We started our works for the WTE of Santa Palomba. This is a WTE which is going to be one of the biggest of WTE, with a forcing capacity of 600,000 tons a year. At the same time, we started works for the fourth line of the San Vittore WTE, which will be up and running next year. As to operational efficiency, we launched a number of projects in the field of robotics and automation of plants, which will give us results in the next few years. We are the only water utility in the steering committee of the Piano Mattei plan, thus being able to expand our presence abroad. We have been awarded the tender for a project aiming at planning water infrastructures in the capital of Congo, Brazzaville. Moreover, in the water business again, the acquisition of Acea, which is a platform of water services. Well, this acquisition will help us to manage in a more efficient manner water resources and help us to further consolidate our competencies in this business. Now, let me now move to the next slide. Here we are focusing our attention on the main drivers of our growth over the past 3 years. First of all, people. For the first time, we have been able to get among the top 20 employers in Italy. This is a very important recognition, which I believe recognizes the commitment that we have taken to improve the well-being and the growth of our people. We then strengthen the programs devoted to talents and talent growth, and we signed an agreement with the Lewis Business School for a corporate master and a talent program involving 84 colleagues. We have then managed in a very structured manner the generational turnover for the period 2023-2025. The group then invested considerably on systems by accelerating digital innovation, robotics, also by the launch of a Quantum, a company with which then we reached agreement with the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, the Italian Technology Institute, for the creation of a joint lab devoted to robotics, and we have then experimented a number of user case with artificial intelligence with 12 different technology partners. In the field of cybersecurity, we implemented a digital resilience plan, which aims at safeguarding and protecting our infrastructures, which are now critical, and we are now aligned to the requirements of NIS2 regulation, strengthening the digital resilience of the infrastructure for which we operate. As to processes, we set up a evolution, a new structure devoted to the centralization and optimization of services, and we have defined a new energy transition plan of the group, which guides our strategy towards a more sustainable model, also from the energy point of view. As to credit, we have introduced a new management process, which led to a considerable improvement with an increase of collections by 26% versus 2022. I believe another major step was the update or renewal of the brand identity, through which we have redesigned the whole digital ecosystem as well to make it more modern, more recognizable, and consistent with the transformation which is now ongoing. I believe that such results over the past 3 years are not merely isolated initiatives, but they are the result of a structural change of the group, and which makes Acea continue along this direction going forward. This is something that we are building on to allow Acea to grow in the future. I'll give the floor to the CFO, Valentina Bracaglia, who will give you the details of the results. Thank you, Fabrizio, and good afternoon. Let's start from the regulatory and market context. Here it is important to remind you that in the water business, Acea was awarded bonuses for technical quality and contractual quality for 36 million euros. And then the update of the WACC for 2026-2027 has seen a considerable stability, and therefore we are around 6.1%. As to electricity distribution, there was no activation of the return on capital trigger for 2026. And therefore, the remuneration invested capital remains stable at 5.6%. As to commodity prices, electricity and gas prices in 2025 went up by 6% and 8% respectively versus the previous year. And it is well known then that interest rates over the last quarter confirmed the trend recorded in the first 9 months of 2025, with a decrease of average rates versus 2024. Now, let me now move on to the highlights of our group of the results. So the group results are strongly growing in all economic indicators, thus confirming the soundness of our financial strategy and the effectiveness of our strategy. As the CEO said before, the approval of results for the first 9 months of 2025 in line with the international accounting principles, the Acea Energia perimeter were classified, keeping into account discontinued operations. We then exposed the pro forma results, simulating the deconsolidation of discontinued operations and of Acquedotto del Flora, which occurred in the first 9 months of 2024. Now, considering that the CEO has already outlined the main results of 2025, I'll briefly talk about the net profit and operating cash flow. Net profit, 481 million euros, which is an all-time high, and it is up 49% versus the previous year. And this is also due to the capital gains achieved following the disposal of the high voltage network to Terna. The net profit is also growing by 15% versus the previous year, and this follows the dynamics recorded at operational level. The operating free cash flow is positive at 206 million euros, thus allowing us to maintain a sound financial structure with a NFP EBITDA pro forma ratio equal to 3.28. Next slide, we see the main indicators of the dynamics, and you can see all results are growing strongly. As to EBITDA, Acea concluded the year with a growth of 8% versus the results of 2024, adjusted for one-offs and changes in the perimeter. CapEx net of public subsidies are equal to 1.2 billion euros, of which 68 million related to activities which are being disposed. Net of discontinued operations of Acea Energia, investments or regulated CapEx represent 94% of the total. Net profit, which includes the contribution of discontinued operations, goes up by 15% on a recurring basis, and which reflects the very good operational performance. The net financial position is basically stable, and this allows us to maintain a debt EBITDA ratio stable. Well, let's now move on to the next slide, where we can see the EBITDA. Now, in 2025, gross operating margin recorded an organic growth by 108 million euros versus 2024. The main drivers here are the tariff growth and the operating efficiencies in the water business. The contribution of grids and public lighting, which, thanks to investments, are growing, and the increase of production, both because of the price dynamics and because also of higher volumes produced. On the right, you see the main one-offs and change in perimeters, 38 million euros overall in 2024, relating to the recognition of previous tariffs referred to 2022-2023, which were recognized, as I said, in 2024. As to 2025, the one-offs relate mainly to bonuses for technical and contractual quality that we mentioned at the beginning. Now, as to the recurring net profit, the growth versus growth equal to 49 million euros is to be related to a higher operating performance and also thanks to the financial management, which is stable year on year. As to the EBITDA, here you can see on the slide on the right the one-offs, which shows the most important one, which is the disposal of the high voltage tension for 100 million euros. Now, let's move to the next slide, the CapEx, considering the contribution of Acea Energia in the first part of the year. In 2025, we invested 1.5 billion euros, up 6% versus 2024. Of such investments, 91% are referred to the regulated business, water, grids, and environment. Net of the perimeter of Acea Energia, that is the operations subject to disposal, the contribution to regulated business to total CapEx was equal to 94%. Now, here you can see the main initiatives that were undertaken in the year, among which the widening of the water and sewage pipelines and the strengthening of the distribution network for electricity. Now, here you can see the cash flow, which is equal to 19 million euros in 2025, which reflects the CapEx, the payment of dividends and taxes. As to M&As, 267 million euros that you see on the slide show, among other components, also the cash in by Terna, the amount of money for the disposal of the high voltage network, which was equal to 227 million euros, whereas the cash in of the Arena contribution is expected in 2026. Here you can see the financial structure, and you can see that the average debt cost of debt in 2025 was 2.07% versus 2.60% of the previous year. The cost of debt is also affected partly by the reduction of variable rates connected to the Euribor, which is such that is around 20% of the total. Here you can see the Aquitalia results. Let me tell you that the results of 2024 were recalculated because we had to take into account the reclassification of the aqueduct of del Fiora. In 2025, EBITDA, recurring EBITDA, adjusted for bonuses, has gone up by 8%, growing by 58 million euros. Such dynamic is supported by tariffs growth, CapEx results achieved by the consolidated companies, and operational efficiency. Net of public subsidies, CapEx record a growth by 25 million euros, up 4% year-on-year, and related to investments made on aqueducts and water treatment plan and the maintenance of network. Net of the investment related to aqueduct del Flora, the yearly growth is 57 million euros. RAB at the end of 25 goes up to 5.4 billion euros. Let me now move to slide 18, where you can see the grid and public lighting business. Now, despite the reduction of WACC by 40 basis points in 2025 versus 2024, EBITDA, recurring EBITDA, rose by 32 million euros to 457 million euros. The main drivers are CapEx carried out and the update used to re-evaluate RAB starting in 2025. CapEx net of public subsidies around 312 million euros, in 2025 are growing by 5% versus 2024. RAB is stable at 3.1 billion euro versus 2024, and this is due to the disposal of the part of the high voltage network. Now let me move to the environment business. And here, net of one-off EBITDA grows by 6% year-on-year, and this result is related to higher margins of the WTEs. CapEx in this area are growing by 8 million euros year-on-year. And let me remind you that in 2024, CapEx included the effect of the WTE Terni revamping operations. Here you see the production business. The recurring EBITDA grows by 12 million euros because of the more favorable energy scenario and the greater production coming from hydroelectric and photovoltaic plants. The energy produced or generated goes up by 18% thanks to hydroelectric and photovoltaic business. In 2025, CapEx were 33 million, up 8 million versus 2024. Let me give the floor back to, I do apologize. As to 2026 guidance, well, EBITDA is envisaged to grow between 3 5% versus the 2025 restated, considering the one-offs and the change in the perimeter that we talked about before, and excluding the contribution of the high voltage grid, and then disposed of in 2025, and photovoltaic plants disposed of in 2025, and then Public Aqua, which is now to be disposed. As to 2026 EBITDA, here we have not taken into account the contribution of Acea Energia, which is to be disposed. We have included the contribution of Aquanex, considering the deal will be closed in the second part of the year. As to net debt EBITDA ratio, the guidance is between 3.5 and 3.6 times. Thank you. The presentation is now over. We can now start the Q&A session. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is the corresponding conference operator. We can now start the Q&A session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one on the touch-tone telephone. To remove yourself from the question queue, please press star and two. Please pick up the receiver when asking questions. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one at this moment. Now, the first question by Francesco Sala, Banca Akros. Now, good afternoon and congratulations for your results. First question about the 2026 guidance. I wonder whether it includes subsidies or bonuses for the water business or whether it doesn't. And then second question, again, about the water business. What is the average tariff increase for 2026 for the water companies? And now another question about the hedging policy. How much energy have you already sold forward? Can you tell us something about 2026 and perhaps 2027? And then can you give us an update about the works of the Peschiera Aqueduct? Where do we stand there? Thank you. No, thank you very much for this question. Let me start from the first question. In the 2026 guidance, as usual, we have not included any bonus for technical and contractual quality. The guidance includes an average of the growth of water tariffs by 6%. As to Peschiera, the tender should be awarded in April, so this is state of the art at the moment. And as to hedging policy, well, we are monitoring the situation very carefully. At the moment, we have an exposure of 3 million of EBITDA for each increase of the pan of energy, but we are monitoring the market constantly for this purpose. Thank you. Now, the next question, Javier Suarez with Mediobanca. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your presentation. I have a few questions to ask as well, if I may. Now, the first is a more conceptual or strategic question. Now, the company has gone through a transformational change during the year, and now the company is very much is very much focused on regulated business. Now, in your guidance, the EBITDA goes up to 3.6%, and I wonder whether you can speak about the company from a structural point of view, and about the possibility to grow debt. But what is the level of the debt that you can reach, considering the structure that you will have in 2026? Now, second question is about the dividend. The dividend, as you said, is growing quite strongly, and this is related to the capital gains achieved from the disposal of the high voltage grid sold to Terna. Now, in 2026, you will also have capital gains related to the disposal of the supply business. Now, will that capital gain be part of your dividend policy in 2026? And then I'd like to have some indication of 2026 below the EBITDA. Now, the consensus I see is around 350 million of net income in 2026. Do you feel comfortable with this guidance for 2026? And what's the impact of the energy decree that has been approved by the government? Thank you very much for your questions, Javier. Let me start from the energy decree. Now, the growth of 2%, or the growth by 2% of Europe, will have an impact of 6 million euros for us. This is a regulated business. We have to see the evolution to actually answer your question. As to the PAN, now the change here can be estimated around 30-35 megawatt hour, and this will have an impact of some 10 million euros. However, it is included in our guidance because it is a very well-known factor in this moment. Then there is something which is related to the payment of the Acea money by the distributor. This will be absorbed. As to dividends, now, as you heard, we approved an extraordinary dividends because of capital gains and results. Next year, we will have capital gains, certainly, but the only known element is the dividend policy at the moment, and then if we have to update it, we shall see it next year. As to that, well, the fact that we now are a player focused on a regulated business, well, this helps us. Now, at the moment, our threshold of debt is around 3.7, 3.8 because of the change of the perimeter of the business. We expect this will change, but we need to wait for the approval of the industrial plan, and then we then should have to see what the rating agencies say. But as I say, the approval of the industrial plan here is what can help everyone in this direction. As to the guidance, we do not give any guidance below the EBITDA, but let me say that we do not expect any discontinuities below the EBITDA. Now, the next question by Roberto Letizia with Equita. Now, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question about the debt guidance. Well, CapEx are going to be more or less the same as last year. CapEx is going to be quite high, 1.5 billion gross, so 1.2 billion net. Is this a level of CapEx which is going to be structured as a level? Well, this helps us to understand the sustainability of the debt going forward. And then again, about debt, are there any special considerations about changes of the working capital for 2026? And the change in the debt guidance, does that include also the money collected in the water business? Just wanted to understand how the mechanics work here. Now, as to the restructuring of the group, I wonder whether in 2026, also because of the acquisition of Aquanexa, are there going to be M&A deals similar to Aquanex? I'm just asking this question whether 2026 we will have M&A surprises, or whether you are cautious about M&As in 2026. And then the sensitivity of the prices of energy. Is that a sensitivity of the group or related only to power generation? We know that there are increases in the procurement prices. I wonder whether the sensitivity that you gave us is an upside only for the power generation, or considering the net effect on generation, we might have also the effect of the growth of procurement prices. Now, and then another question of dividends. Can you tell us the capital gains that you expect in capital in 2026, so that we can then run our models for dividends? And then another question about the distribution companies. Thank you. Let me start, first of all, from the question on M&As. Now, Acea, as a group, has an asset rotation which was completed in 2024. Now, as to further growth through acquisitions, well, as top managers of the group, we need to see whether there are opportunities on the market, and if there are opportunities, we need to grasp them. Our growth, however, is also related to a very strong organic growth in our businesses. The acquisition of Aquanexa is certainly a first step. Through Aquanexa, we acquired a unique platform in the water services. This certainly helps us to grow organically, but it could also help us to see whether we can acquire other competencies which are becoming very important, considering that networks are to become more resilient and more safe. Now, as to the internationalization, for instance, the contract for the planning of our in our water business, well, certainly there might be some operations internationally, but as I said, this is related to opportunities coming up on the market. Now, Valentina will answer the other questions. As to the debt guidance, this does not include the disposal of one of the company in the water business. Now, we know that this company is to be disposed of, but we at the moment are waiting. As to the working capital, well, it is certainly positive. We certainly are to also cash in the money as a result of the equalization of the bills. As to CapEx, now with the approval of the master plan, we will be able to give you clearer indications. Now, please remember that with Article 2, well, this helps us to plan CapEx and also consider what it takes for the power distribution. When I talked about the sensitivity, that was only related to the power business, but during the year we do not expect further impacts. Now, considering the procurement strategy, in 2026, we do not believe that in 2026 there will be major material changes. We might have some impacts on the net financial position in the water business, but nothing that can change our guidance in an unexpected manner or in a manner which cannot be managed. As to the capital gains, well, we shall see when such capital gains are cashed in. The level would be quite high. Now, last question about the concessions. Well, there we are waiting for the approval of the MAS decree, and at the moment we do not have the visibility in order to give you greater or more ideas about this. The next question by Emanuele Oggioni, Capital Chevron. Now, good evening and congratulations for your results. Now, I have a few questions. The first one is related to the management change. Now, in the press, we constantly read that the top management of your group is going to change. Can you please make a comment about this? So, then when are you going to update your business plan, considering also the change in the perimeter of your group? And then another question about the investigation of the antitrust authority related to the disposal of a company to Plenitude. Can you tell us something about this? You said that the whole thing is going to be closed, before the end of the first part of 26. Then, as to the tenders in the water business, now you in Italy won almost all of the tenders that were published in previous years and in 2025. I wonder which tenders are going to be issued or published in 2026, and if you can give us further visibility about this. and whether there might be something relevant about volumes over and above the strategy, which implies moving towards new areas. But is there going to be a contribution to EBITDA? Again, about water concessions. Now, the budget law mentions the possible extension by 10 years of the main concessions for ATO 2 until 2032, but also for the subsequent 10 years. Can you give us more details about this? And then a very last question, if I may, about the synergies that you expect from Aquanex. Now, how much can the EBITDA go up thanks to these synergies in the first 2 years, let's say? Now, let me answer your questions. Now, the disposal of the supply business to Plenitude, as you read in the press release, we have received the approval of the CCM. This means a slight change in the perimeter of Acea. And Acea will continue to manage the market of safeguarded or frail people, and this reviewed the enterprise value in a non-meaningful manner. Revision of the enterprise value below 3%. As to the industrial plan, as we said often, now the company is ready to present the industrial plan to the market. Now, we are at the end of the mandate of the members of the board, so we'll wait for the review of the board of directors. Now, the budget law has approved the extension of 10 years the concession that we have in Lazio. We need to submit our CapEx plan, but this is very important. Then there is also the plan on the part of the government to extend the concessions in the electricity business by 30 years. The company is ready. The guidelines that we are to follow are very clear, and we will be more precise as to the new industrial plan going forward. Now let me give forward to Valentina, who will answer the other questions. As to tenders, we know that the competition dialogue was completed for the Viterbo tender, which envisages CapEx by 2 billion. We are now waiting for the start of the third stage. Invitation letters will be sent, will be published. In 2026, we expect that a tender will be published for the management of the integrated water service in North Naples. And here we are seeing also a number of small initiatives related to public-private partnerships. Well, let me step in, says the CEO. We expect in the second quarter of this year, we expect to complete the acquisition that Valentina mentioned. We cannot give you figures in this moment. Certainly, there will be synergies. At the moment, we are not customers of Aquanex. But since we have a 16% market share in the water business, we are the main player in Italy here. Well, Aconex could certainly be able to get some contracts, and there will be certain synergies that we can capture, innovative technologies, services which are more connected to the quality and the use of the water resource, which can also help us expand our business or grow our business. Now, as a reminder, if you have any other question, you may press star followed by one on your touchtone telephone. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not have any other question in the conference call. Well, then, thank you very much for taking part into this presentation. Thank you and have a nice day.